Back again with another video, and today I'll be talking about and reviewing the 1994 family film Richie Rich. And, this is sort of a random watch. I mean, I've seen the film before, definitely. I mean, I had this on VHS back in the day. I remember rewatching this one a lot. I don't know why as a kid I would, this film always appealed to me as a kid, if I remember correctly. And I'm always open to correction because on the VHS, I remember the trailers. I want to say it was Free Willy 2 and Batman Forever. I don't know. I'm probably way off. But, again, I had this on VHS. And, it was nice to watch again. Richie Rich is a fun little movie. Now, before I get to the review, I mentioned before that I know it sounds like a chamber in here. Because the whole house is tile. So I definitely have more to put in the office here to sort of help with the acoustics and the sound. So, like I said, I do apologize for the chamber, kind of sound here. But, I'm adding a little bit at a time here. But getting back to the review. So let's talk about Richie Rich. Now, Richie Rich is based on the character from the Harvey comics created by Alfred Harvey and Warren Kramer. But, I don't know much about the character of the comics. Never read the comics. But, this film is directed by Donald Petrie. Now, before this, Donald Petrie had directed Mystic Pizza with Julia Roberts. He would also direct Opportunity Knocks and Grumpy Old Men, which is a very good comedy. Miss Congeniality, he directed that. Now, the writers here, you have Thomas Parker and Jim Genowine. And these two guys, I guess they were a team because, the same year they worked on the Flintstones. Prior to this, they worked on Stay Tuned. And the plot for this film here, Richie Rich, the richest kid in the world, which at the time Macaulay Culkin was the richest kid in the world. I mean, have been done the first two Home Alone films, The Good Son, and before that, a few years back, Uncle Buck. And this was Macaulay Culkin's last film, his final film as a child actor until he came back in 2003. So he took a 9-year hiatus, after this movie. But going back to the plot for a second, he's the richest kid in the world, but Richie has everything he wants except friends. So, in the beginning, you see his character, at the sort of, I guess you want to say convention, what's the name of that tool? It's some kind of like business where he's representing his father, and you see kids outside playing baseball across the street. You have his butler Cadbury, played by Jonathan Hyde, and you get that sense that Richie wants to join in and make friends, but because of his life and who he is, he has to go about doing certain things and do this and do that. But his parents, you have the Edward Herrmann from The Lost Boys, and Christine Ebersole as Mr. and Mrs. Rich. And like I said, you have Cadbury in here, played by Jonathan Hyde. And meanwhile, you have our villain in the film, this greedy executive type, Vando, played by John Larroquette from Night Court, Dan Fielding. And, a little bit later on, you find out a little bit more that the villain is forming this plot to steal the financial fortune. So when the parents of Richie Rich, they take a flight to England, their flight, Vando had put a bomb on the plane to get rid of Richie Rich's parents and to plan to take over the company. And Richie Rich, it's up to him to stop Van Doe with the help of his friends, and that's kind of the plot here. But get into the cast. Macaulay Culkin, again, he's good here. He definitely brings a certain charm to the film that makes it fun. But what really helps along the way is the supporting cast. I mean, again, you have Edward Herrmann as Mr. Rich, from The Lost Boys. And unfortunately, he's passed away, which is sad. But, Edward Herrmann, again, he's good here. Christine Ebersole as Mrs. Rich. I remember she would go on to be in Black Sheep with Chris Farley and David Spade. And that's a good comedy. And, she was a good support here. You have the character of Cadbury, played by Jonathan Hyde, and this guy you've seen before. Shortly after, he would be in Jumanji, Anaconda, other films like, Titanic and The Mummy. And you don't really see that guy much now. I don't know if he's retired, but, I always liked, seeing Jonathan Hyde in certain films as a supporting player. Again, whether it be, Jumanji or Anaconda, The Mummy. And again, I don't know if he's retired now, but, a very good actor. And definitely one of the highlights of the film, that character. Again, you have John Larroquette as our villain here, Van Doe. Pretty much an executive type that, works for Mr. Rich, but he wants to take over the company by trying to get rid of the parents of Richie Rich, and to go after the family fortune by, wanting to find the whereabouts of the Rich family vault, which would come into play in the third act. But, John Larroquette, from Night Court, Dan Fielding here is your villain. But, again, John Larroquette plays a good villain to me. I mean, to me, he works. He's not playing it over the top. Like some of the moments with that character, especially towards the end, when when they get to the vault and Mr. and Mrs. Rich have to open the vault by voice activation, so they sing a little tune, and he's like, thank you, Beavis and Butthead. So, I mean, even our villain here has a couple of fun moments, but, John Larroquette, again, the way he played it, you can believe that, this guy, like, he's a bad guy. He's a dick. I mean, I don't know how else to, put it. But John Larroquette, again, he's another highlight of this film, but because he plays a good villain. And you also have Chelcie Ross as his sort of, associate, who looks after Richie Rich, but he's working for, Van Doe. And Chelcie Ross, Colonel Oates from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And he would be in other films like Hoosiers. And I just watched him in The Last Boy Scout. He's in that as the Senator Baynard. But Chelcie Ross, again, you've seen him in many films. Again, Bogus Journey, Hoosiers, but he's good here. And you do have some appearances in the film. I mean, from Reggie Jackson and Ben Stein, Claudia Schiffer. Because you see in the beginning, Richie Rich, he's getting, baseball lessons from Reggie Jackson, and one of his professors is Ben Stein. And so it was interesting to see some of the appearances here in this film. But, again, when I look at the cast, again, Macaulay Culkin, he definitely brings a certain charm to the film that makes it work and makes it fun. And even at this time, I'm sure Macaulay Culkin was probably, 14? But he was still a good child actor. I mean, and like I said, shortly after this film, he would take a 9-year break. But, being that this was his last film as a kid actor, to me, he did a good job. And the supporting cast definitely helps, with the highlights of, actually, I almost forgot to mention the Professor Keen Bean, played by Michael McShane. And I think this guy was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I've seen this guy before. But, the Professor, like in the film, he creates these different inventions, like the Smell Master and Robo Bee. A lot of people remember the Robo Bee in the film. And I thought that character was a fun character. So, overall, the cast, the supporting cast, everyone does their part, play their part well. And, with a good villain, Cadbury being, very good supporting character, and played by Jonathan Hyde. So really good, really good cast. And like I mentioned before, directed by Donald Petrie. And while I haven't seen Mystic Pizza or Opportunity Knocks, but, Grumpy Old Men is a really good 90s comedy. And yeah, I would say I prefer that more as a, film and comedy. But, Donald Petrie still does a good job here with the direction. To me, the way it was shot and where they shot the film, because it was actually filmed at Biltmore Estate, which is here in North Carolina, but I've never been there. I think it's about a few hours away, but yeah, so the whole Rich mansion, yeah, that was filmed at Biltmore Estate. And yeah, I know a lot of people that have been there, but I've never been there. Yeah, so, and it actually says right here, there were some, shots that were filmed in Chicago, but the house and the grounds, yeah, were filmed at Biltmore Estate in Nashville. So, yeah, really good, locations here. And again, I go back to the director and the way, the film looked, and especially when we get to the third act, where, Richie Rich and his friends, they have to stop our villain here, and you throw in the whole finale on the mountain, and, some of the little bit of action that takes place. But again, credit to Donald Petrie, and the score by Alan Silvestri. Yeah, the same guy that would provide the scores for Forrest Gump and Back to the Future films and Predator. To me, it's a fun little score here. And in regards to the humor and such, again, it works. To me, it's fun. It's family fun type of humor. There's even a line in here, which I remember now because, rewatching it again, and it definitely takes a, whole new meaning now. But there's a scene where, later on, Richie Rich will play baseball with the kids at the park. And Cadbury's like, don't play with them. And, what are you doing, Master Rich? And just as Rich is about to go play baseball, Cadbury mentions this piece of dialogue. Oh, they probably haven't been vaccinated yet. And I'm like, yeah, they probably, I don't know. I chuckled at that line a little bit, because of, now what's happening. Yeah, I know I got a little bit dark in here, but we can fix that. There you go. Maybe a little bit. There you go. But yeah, I thought it was a funny little piece of dialogue when he mentioned that, oh, they haven't been vaccinated yet. Yeah, because, they might have COVID. It's time for a hashtag Cadbury quarantine. But, yeah, so, but, other moments of humor, again, it's innocent. It's, family fun type of humor. And okay, later on you would see Richie Rich, where the friends would come over, and you would have some fun scenes there where either they're riding on this roller coaster because Richie Rich has his own roller coaster, or he has his own McDonald's, which, you know, even as a kid, you know, watching this on VHS, every time that scene would come up, I would always get, you know, like, impressed by it. And like, you know, this kid has his own McDonald's. But again, you know, being, what, 6, 7, 8 years old, watching this on tape, and every time that scene would come up, it always, you know, blew me away that, you know, how can this kid have his own McDonald's? You know, how can this kid have his own roller coaster and, you know, catapult or catapult, whatever you want to call it. And it just seemed like fun. You know, these are, you know, you look at these kids in the film, like they're outside playing baseball. They're hanging with Rich at his mansion. You know, he has his own McDonald's. He has his own roller coaster. You know, like, yeah, I mean, you could say about the kids here in this film, you could probably say they're a little bit stereotypical, or, you know, they don't really, I mean, you know, they work fine, but, you know, I'll take them over kid actors now, because you look at kids now, I mean, to me, you know, like, if this film happened now, like if this film happened today, you would just have, you know, Richie Rich, you know, with his friends over, and they're just all sitting around, and, you know, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and, you know, not, I don't know, just maybe I'm going off in a tangent there, but, you know, see, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, the kid actors are fine. Now, to mention a couple little pieces of information here, apparently there was a direct sequel that was planned with Macaulay Culkin. I don't know if you really needed a sequel, but, you know, they did one anyways, which is a piece of crap. Do not watch that movie. Yeah, Richie Rich's Christmas Wish. Very bad movie. You know, but I look at this film, again, I don't know if it really calls for a sequel. You know, to me, it's a film that works on its own. And also, too, this was a personal pet project for producer Joel Silver. You know, after a long development process came to fruition, you know, when Macaulay Culkin signed on to be cast in this film, Warner Brothers finally greenlit the film into production. And this is the fourth film that composer Alan Silvestri had scored for a Joel Silver production. You know, previously they did Predator, Predator 2, Ricochet, so, you know, with 4 different directors. But again, you know, just to mention a couple little sidebars of trivia. And, you know, so, you know, in the box office, you know, to sort of mention the box office here a little bit, I mean, the film came out and it earned $38 million here in the States on a $40 million budget. And it was a home video success. I mean, it made $125 million in VHS rentals. And like I said, you know, spawning a sequel, which is a piece of shit. And Roger Ebert gave this film 3 out of 4 stars. You know, saying how surprised he was at how much he enjoyed it. And though it was not the greatest movie, he liked that it had style and it did not go for cheap payoffs. So, yeah, Roger Ebert liked this movie, which is cool. And, you know, overall, you know, when I look at this film, you know, rewatching it again, it's a fun family film, and Culkin does a good job here. He definitely brings that, you know, Culkin charm to the character. A good supporting cast. You know, Edward Herrmann does a good job. Christine Ebersole as the parents of Richie Rich. You know, good villain played by John Larroquette. And, you know, Jonathan Hyde is Cadbury. And, again, he does a good job. Definitely one of the highlights of the film. I would say the highlights to me are, you know, Macaulay Culkin. You know, I would say Cadbury, that character, John Larroquette as our villain Van Doe. You know, the third act is enjoyable. Some nice little bits of, you know, I mean, it's not going to be like Terminator type action or, you know, like a action you would see in, Van Damme movies or what have you, or Stallone movies. But, I thought it was entertaining enough where, you wanted to see our main villain here, John Larroquette's character, get his, get stopped. And, where you see him on the mountain and he's trying to kill, the parents, and even the way that looked, I didn't even mention that, the rich mountain, the way that looked, I thought was well shot, and, very good locations, with the Biltmore Estate, and, using that here in this film, interesting appearances, and yeah, so it's a good family film, and, again, while it's not a 10 out of 10 perfect film, but, a film that, came out back, 27 years ago, rewatching it now, to me, it still works. It's still, fun little family movie. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching my review of Richie Rich, and have a good day.